If you loved Baldur's Gate 3 and are wondering what cRPG could possibly be anywhere as good, Dragon Age Origins is the answer. It combines an interesting world, memorable characters with top-notch voice acting, and satisfying tactical real-time combat with active pause. Sure, it's a bit clunky here and there, but overall the game aged really well. And it's also huge. Even if you stick to the main quests, you're likely to spend about 30-40 hours in-game, and that's excluding DLCs. What do you spend this time on in Dragon Age Origins, you might ask? Well, let me tell you all about it. The game's premise is as BioWare as it gets. Absolutely generic. You know, ancient evil awakening, the chosen one saving the world, and so on. However, BioWare used to be masters of turning generic concepts into great games. In Dragon Age Origins, we assume the role of Grey Wardens, dedicated to thwarting the so-called darkspawn. The darkspawn are vile, tainted creatures that mostly dwell underground. However, every few centuries they invade the surface in apocalyptic events called the Blights. When this happens, the Grey Wardens are expected to raise an army to fight the darkspawn and to slay the Archdemon, a powerful dragon that leads the Horde. To this end, the Grey Wardens have the right to conscript just about anyone into their ranks and demand help from various kingdoms, clans, circles, and whatnot.
You are called upon to submit yourself to the taint for the greater good. From this moment forth, you are a Grey Warden.
And this is basically what we do in Dragon Age Origins. But of course, it's not like we say, we need your help, and everyone is like, sure, just let me get dressed. Before our character can do any of that, they need to put on their big boy or big girl pants first. Origins, the subtitle, likely refers to their journey from zero to hero. There are 6 origins to choose from, each one being an hour or two introduction of the protagonist to the Grey Wardens and the main story. One thing to note here is that origins don't work like they do in Baldur's Gate 3. These are custom characters but with some extra backstory. Just saying, so that you don't get your expectations too high. In any case, not every race and class can select a given origin. So, for example, if you want to play a human noble, you can only be a warrior or a rogue. If you want to play a human mage, you won't be a noble, for lore reasons. Dwarves in turn can't use magic at all in the Dragon Age universe. Still, there are 11 possible class race origin combinations, and you will surely find one to your liking. Later on in the game, you get a varied degree of reactivity to your choice and some extra dialogue options. It's no coincidence that all origins are connected to the factions that we need to fight the Blight. However, only the human noble origin has really strong ties to the main story, and it's a no-brainer for your first playthrough. Having survived their worst day so far, the protagonist and their party are thrown in at the deep end again. The main story starts with preparations for a huge battle against the Darkspawn Horde, and if this isn't bad enough, the world is in internal turmoil as it is. Long story short, everyone has more pressing matters than the imminent end of the world at hand. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. Anyway, jokes aside, the concept is basically the same as in Mass Effect 3. We forge an alliance against an ancient evil, and we do so by being professional problem solvers to everyone.
So, we have come to solve every squabble in the village personally. My, but the Darkspawn will be impressed.
Sounds stock, but it's actually quite gripping. I don't want to spoil anything, but there are different ways to go about Grey Warden business. Obviously, politics and crises often call for desperate and potentially cruel measures. You can be an honorable do-gooder, but you can also be, let's call it, morally flexible. This is what sets Dragon Age Origins apart from many, if not most, cRPGs. It's feasible and profitable to be evil. Most importantly, evil doesn't equal a raging lunatic. It's more about a ruthless means-to-an-end approach. Evil people don't consider themselves evil. It's similar to the Mass Effect trilogy. You have a mission to accomplish and nothing is out of the question given what's at stake. However, in Dragon Age Origins there is no morality meter that dictates what you can and can't do or say. Of course, your companions might not be happy about your choices. Speaking of companions, it's BioWare, so they aren't original in terms of concept. However, our party feel like actual people with their own morals, tastes, quirks and opinions. Each companion has a fleshed out backstory and a proper character arc that we can explore in the course of the adventure. They aren't merely cookie-cutter henchmen to help you fight and carry your loot. Their personal journey alongside us is just as interesting as ours if we give them enough attention. My favorite thing about the companions though are their banters. They talk about everything, be it cooking or religion, they have arguments, get jealous and comment on places and situations. This is what makes them feel like real people, like an actual team of different individuals working towards a common goal. Although their reasons for doing so, well, that's another matter entirely, and I let you discover those on your own.
I know that sounds absolutely insane, but it's true. I had a dream. A vision.
More crazy? I thought we were all full up.
Some companions can be Romans too. My advice, if you play a male warden, go with Morrigan in your first playthrough. She's a bit of a heartless shrew like Viconia from Baldur's Gate, but better. Her romantic arc is arguably the best one in the game and is also heavily rooted in the main story. And then there's the superb performance by Claudia Black. Of course, when you know the game well, you can juggle romances and one-night stands almost like in The Witcher, but patience, young Grey Warden, patience. In general, writing and voice acting is consistently high quality across all NPCs, major and minor alike. The antagonists and supporting characters feel just as alive and authentic as our party. Sure, there are some questionable things here and there, but not even once during multiple playthroughs over the past 15 years did I feel bored. I can't say the same about several cRPGs that came out in that period, many of which also fancied themselves spiritual successors of different classics. Okay, maybe I exaggerated a bit saying I was never bored. Dragon Age Origins is a bit bloated with filler content meant to increase playtime. I mean, this is a huge game, even if you ditch low-effort fetch quest, collectibles and such. Luckily, you're not forced to do tedious things like you are in Dragon Age Inquisition, so my advice is, don't give into FOMO because it's not worth it. As for the world building and design, Thedas in Origins is one of the best cRPG settings out there. I love the fantasized medieval Europe vibe, the mystery of the Maker and the spirit world, and the departure from a typical high fantasy in favor of a more low/dark fantasy. Sure, most of what you're seeing is ripping off history, the Holy Bible or other works. BioWare just inverted these things or twisted them in some way to fit their universe. But interestingly, I think it's easier to get a grasp on the in-game world because how familiar many of its concepts seem. So dwarves live underground in the mountains, but she-dwarfs aren't hideous. The elves eat acorns in some forest or serve humans. The Maker is God and Andraste is a female Jesus. The Chantry is the Catholic Church, but priests are female. The Templars are a weird mix of a knightly order and the Inquisition. Not that Inquisition though. Anyway, you get the gist. It's different, but familiar. And surprisingly, it just works. Besides, BioWare arguably never created anything truly original. They just excelled at tried ways of doing things, and it's fine by me. Finally, I love how BioWare's vision translates into the actual in-game atmosphere and the level design. The world feels gloomy, dirty, and very convincing most of the time.
Well, there it is. Lothering. Pretty as a painting.
If you enjoyed Tyranny or The Witcher, you'll feel right at home. The only immersion breaker is that the world is incredibly static in a purely technical sense. It's like a movie set before the director says action. But then again, this is true in all BioWare games. I'd be very surprised if the Veilguard was any different. Anyway, since we finally moved to the technical aspects, let's talk about the gameplay. Like I mentioned earlier, Dragon Age Origins is arguably the best cRPG by BioWare. The experience in design and engine development accumulated from Neverwinter Nights, Knights of the Old Republic and even Jade Empire really shows. Of course, the game is clunky by today's standards. The trees especially look like shit. Our party never learned to jump or climb and they keep bumping into invisible walls, but despite these flaws, Origins still strikes a great
balance in all things.
The learning curve is quite gentle. The gameplay systems are easy to understand and character development is really straightforward. BioWare found the sweet spot between complexity and simplicity in my opinion. By contrast, newer classic cRPGs such as Pillars of Eternity and Pathfinder Kingmaker felt unnecessarily complicated and quirky to me. I mean, if I have to research character builds in order to avoid having an ineffective party later on in the game, then this is clearly on the designers. More complex doesn't automatically mean better. In any case, Dragon Age Origins uses the classic real-time with active pause combat system. Of course, fights still look and feel a bit Neverwinter Nights-ishy, but there's none of that crazy D&D 3rd edition shit involved. The most important difference is that we aren't restricted by turns, only by individual characters' attack speed and cooldowns of their abilities and spells and items. There is also no spell memorization or per rest use limitations of anything. Whether or not our character can cast a spell or use an ability depends only on their mana and stamina. But despite the simplicity, the combat itself is challenging even on the normal difficulty setting. I've actually beaten Origins on Nightmare, and let me tell you, doing it once is enough for a lifetime. Normal is the sweet spot for most. Hard is an option though if you are a seasoned tactical cRPG player. However, Nightmare will most likely mop the floor with you on your first playthrough. Curiously, unlike in many games, increasing difficulty doesn't enable cheat mode for the AI. Instead, it cranks up the enemy tactics and reduces your advantage to the point of pretty much eliminating it altogether, maybe slightly tipping the balance towards the AI. This in turn forces you to pause often, prioritize targets, and have a very solid understanding of the gameplay systems, because in the vast majority of cases, you are outnumbered and at a tactical disadvantage. In combat, you can rely on the AI, control everything yourself, or mix it up. You can also automate your party's behavior by customizing their AI scripts. You can either use pre-made sets or create your own conditions and actions. For example, you can have your party members heal themselves if their hit points go below 25%. This is the most trivial example, of course, but the point is, AI customization comes very handy if you don't like to pause a lot to do mundane tasks yourself. Finally, you can make Dragon Age Origins better in a number of ways, thanks to a crapload of available mods. I won't go into details here, but I compiled a list of the mods that I'm using in this video in the description. There is a caveat here though, avoid texture mods especially. You see, Dragon Age Origins does have problems with Windows 10 and very likely Windows 11 as well. It seems to be a memory issue. The game is likely to crash every now and then, so quick save often and don't forget to save manually sometimes either. There are also places when it crashes consistently too. If this happens, lower your settings to the absolute minimum and you should be able to progress. Then save, change settings back, load, and you're good to go. What seemed to help me was to set the page file size manually, stick to the 1080p, and most importantly, not go crazy with mods. I know it doesn't sound encouraging, but it's not that bad really, and the game will more than make up for this inconvenience. All in all, Dragon Age Origins withstood the trial of time very well, and it still sits at the top of the modern cRPG heavyweight division with games like Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, spiritually, Origins was Baldur's Gate 3 before anyone even dared hope it would ever materialize. Nostalgia aside, it's also arguably the next best cRPG to play right now, and you can buy Ultimate Edition dirt cheap. Whether you are a newcomer or the 10-year break after Dragon Age Inquisition blurred your memory, do yourself a favor and put Dragon Age Origins on your to-play list. You won't be disappointed either way. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you enjoy my content, please like, comment and subscribe, as this helps this tiny channel get noticed by the Arch algorithm.